people were kidnapped from their homes in West Africa, enslaved, and brought to the Americas. Their culture and religion was brutally repressed. The only available religion was Christianity. And in North America in particular, the techniques and spiritual practices of West Africa that those enslaved people brought with them transformed Christianity and made new practices that were a hybrid. And those new practices had repercussions deep into our own time and the culture we're living in right now. Polyrhythm, syncopation, call and response, rhythms of trance, all of these are some of the aspects that come together in a praise break, among other places. A praise break is a high point of a gospel service when the musicians and the congregation become one to amplify the spiritual energy in the room. It can reach an incredible level of virtuosity. Today, I'm just showing you a beginner example for beginners on your instruments of how you can access some of this energy, which was a transformative energy. People like Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles brought this energy into popular music, and popular music was never the same. You can read more about that and everything else I'm talking about in the description below. At the end of this video, I will break down what I'm doing on each instrument. All right, if you made it this far, we're going to break it down and do the parts instrument by instrument. So let's start with the simple instrument, the tambourine, all right? So let's see, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is not simple. Try doing that for 3 minutes. I cut and pasted it. It's impossible. Marcel Davies Lashley, Pastor April Forbes, even the woman behind me in the West Angeles Church of God in Christ, who was just right in my ear with that. Y'all definitely have some tambourine skills, and I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just trying here. All right, so we're going from 1 to 4. In this case, from B to E. And what we're going to do is a chromatic approach upward to both of them. So playing the root always on the downbeat. So 1, and now chromatic approach. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now if we were going to keep going up, we would go. Right? If you look, that's an octave. So if we're go up to there from the B or back down to there. So chromatic approach, chromatic approach. Okay, this is the most basic kind of walking bass line you could have. The levels of virtuosity in praise break bass playing are insane. Insane. People like Nate Jones and so many great gospel bass players take this to another dimension. I'm just showing the most basic possibilities here. Another way is to go downward, and I learned from Pinky Payne, one of my mentors in gospel music, this bass line that she would play on the organ. Okay, so it's walking down a Mixolydian kind of scale, right? Root, 7th, natural 6. Now, it could go to there, a whole step above where you're going, to the E, but she liked that half step. Then I'll walk back up chromatic. Back down the same way. Or so back down from the E. The little bounce thing, I don't know what that is. I'm also muting to try to keep the strings from going too crazy. So I'm always touching back with a finger or muting up here or both to keep them from ringing out too much. Yeah. I'm not a bass player. So we're doing a 1-4 progression with the 1 being B and the 4 being E. Since we're in a context that's related to the blues, gospel being one of the roots, blues being another, we can have a flat 7 on the 1 in this context of a praise break. Doesn't always work on a gospel song, but in this context when things are getting high energy, it works great to have a dominant 7 on the 1 and on the 4. B7 and an E7 will be our basic shapes. So let's look at them first in the open position down here on the neck. Okay, so that's B7, and here's an E major, you probably know that. Just lift this up. Right, that would be the 1, and that's the 7. E7, so that's our basic, okay? And we're gonna have those shapes again. So remember that's the E7 shape. Well, if you imagine that this nut here is actually a finger, right? Well then if you slide the finger all the way up to B, that's a B here on the low E string. And then you can have that same E7 shape up here and you'll have B7. Okay. And then we could go back down to E. That's not that convenient, so what's a closer way to get to E7? Well, if you know an A major shape, right? And if you imagine again that this is a finger here, the nut, well, you can slide it on up to E, because there's E on the A string right there, and then now you have E major. This note is the 6th that doesn't really fit in the triad. If you want to get the 7 shape, alright, so now you have E7. So you have B7 and E7 in that position, and just a different color, different inversion. Let's talk about the right hand. Taka, 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 all the time. It never changes. Only what changes whether you're digging into the strings or letting it pass. So my basic rhythm is down, up, down, up, down. But my chicky, chicky, chicky never stops. And then what is that rhythm? It's a shuffle rhythm, right? The first and third triplet. So if you go do it very slowly and say chocolate, 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 chocolate. Down, up, And sometimes I would just do all the ups. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the other shape. Higher up on the neck. Down, up, up, down, up, up. Chick, 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 chick. That's the basics. Now, for something a little more advanced, there's this little fill. I consider it a Jimi Hendrix fill. Check out Jimi Hendrix, The Wind Cries Mary, for the perfection of this fill. But I won't really do it justice, but just so you get the idea. So if that's the root of the chord, 1, 2, 3. Right, it's not obviously just a Jimi Hendrix thing. This is a classic fill. But then if you bring in this, so I'm going with that finger and with that finger, so together. Oh, and then another little fill I had down here. Moving the pinky. Minor third down. Now, why would there be a minor third? Third is unstable between minor and major. So another simple thing that can work over this as a soloist or an improviser is a minor pentatonic scale. And that's the most basic shape for that scale. I'm starting on B. So 3 frets, 2 frets, 2 frets, 2 frets, 3 frets, 3 frets. And I think somewhere in the song, I'm doing that bent, or maybe. Right? Now, one step further, you could also use that same scale in the major position. So if this is the root, it's the same exact shape. And that's a major pentatonic, right? Still starting on B, but if it was minor, it would have started down there on G sharp. I'm again bringing in the minor third. All right, so those were the slightly more intermediate concepts, but the basics: B7 and E7. Some quick concepts from the piano improvisation. Remember, we're in a triplet system, so the rhythm is going to be 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. That and if we were in a binary system, it would be 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3. But we're in and I'm going to play it with tritones, a half step apart. But what are they? Well, that one's the B chord. It's 7th, it's 3rd. And that one's the E chord. It's 3rd, it's 7th. Right, my hands are crossed because this is going to be my left hand. The bass is already taken care of. So I'm not even playing the roots of the chord. I'm letting the bass player handle that. And now I'm just going to have a little fun just riding on the root. A lot of gospel keyboard comes, of course, from the Hammond organ, and organists love to hang out here and shape the sound with the tone wheels. I'm on an electric piano patch, so I can't do that, but it still has that kind of tradition of Now what's that? Where does that come from? Well, that would be the major blues scale, or I like to call it the gospel scale. So it's a major pentatonic scale. So we have without the blue note, with the blue note. I tend to hang out on the blue note a lot. And you really need the blue note, especially when you're playing that 4 chord, because otherwise, in this pattern, you're clashing with the 7th on the 4 chord. So you could switch it. But I tend to hang out mostly on the minor. All right, so that's one concept. I could also play a minor blues scale. Right, that's with the blue note there, or without. When I don't think about the fingering, I'm fine. If I think about it, I get confused. It's a little bit on the dark side for a praise break in terms of what you usually hear from a keyboard player, but I'm sure there's a million exceptions to that. I can throw in some polyrhythms. Right, that's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, right? And another thing I really love in this world is, so what is that? So what is that? Well, that's looking like a B minor 7 chord without the root, which looks just like a D major chord. And that's looking like an E major chord, an inversion of an E major chord. I can also, in this position, play a C sharp minor chord. So the 4 or the 2, they both work. And I'm thinking about the melodies that my top note is making, and I'm thinking of it kind of like a choir. Like a vocal arrangement. What's that? So what is that? So that's looking like B minor. You could call it D major over B, or B minor 7. That's looking like C sharp minor. And that was straight up B minor. And then E major. But I'm bouncing back and forth basically between 1 and 2, or 1 and 4. That's a little bit of something else. I'm using a F sharp minor chord just for color. Shifts in color that don't really take you away from the 1, but give you somewhere to go. What was that? So that's 1 minor 7, B minor 7, C sharp minor, B minor straight up, back up to E major, sometimes I like to use the blue note instead of that. Instead of, that's another level. All right, And then the last piece of the harmonic and color picture on the keyboard that I want to talk about today is that diminished. So B diminished So right now I was going, when I get to the 4 chord, I'm hitting a B diminished, which looks a lot like an E7 chord. If you look at its tritone that's embedded in it, that's the 3rd and 7th of an E chord, right? And the 5th even. Now you have this extra note making it an E7 flat 9, a related system. And that's that resolution from 1 diminished to 1. 1 diminished 7 to 1 6. So I'm going from a B diminished to a B6. One of my great mentors, James Hurt, said, no, just go from B diminished to B minor 6. And that also sounds great. Right, minor 3rd with the major 3rd below it. So that's some of the colors. Okay, so the hi-hat in the right hand and the snare in the left hand are easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And so make sure you master that first. Now what about the foot? Da, 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 right? There's the hi-hat and the foot. Right now, just the only tricky thing is to make sure that the foot is on the shuffle feel and not on a binary feel. Binary feel would be and the shuffle feel, right? So and every once in a while, take your hi-hat hand and play a crash at the beginning of the phrase. That's the basics of the drums. If you made it this far in the video, thanks a lot, and I hope you tried out some of the stuff if it was new to you, and I hope that it gave you some joy. We're living in a time where people are more than ever before questioning the issue of cultural appropriation, which may lead some of us to wonder, what is a white guy like me doing a video on a black cultural practice like a praise break? I think that's a really good question. I did this video because I think that the praise break is at the heart of a lot of the music that dominates popular culture now. From really anything you can point back how some of its roots came from gospel music. Certainly anything in the world of R&B, rock and roll, pop, because pop is drawing from R&B and rock and roll. It just goes on and on. So to me, understanding the root and even getting it under your hands a little bit is a way of honoring it, and honoring those that came before and sacrificed a lot. So that's my philosophy about the question. I welcome you to share your own in the comments below, and have a good one.